rabbit. Rabbit toy buddy. Fuck people.
I was scared.
I've still got a little bit of sug here left, but I'm never on that.
Look out! It's coming towards you!
All right, ladies and gentlemen, and with all that, we are live. Today we're going into the fog with Starve Acre and paying taxes to a horrible government. I'm accompanied today with my two co-hosts.
Not real. Professor Bolt.
Okay. Okay, ready? Okay. Starve Acre is the place to be. Hair symbolize fertility. Roots spreading out so deep and wide. Spooky things on an English countryside. You know the show Green Acres?
Yes, I know the show. I know the show Green Acres. What is happening with the sound all of a sudden? Everyone is bouncing around. Yeah. I think it stopped. Oh, I think it's me. All right. I think we're good.
Well, we await your introduction.
I already gave my introduction.
He's Professor Bolt.
Yeah.
And today we're wandering into the fog.
Wandering into the fog of mythology and apparently taxes. I feel like you should give that some context, Jack.
Well, pretty much it's tax season. And much like this rabbit demanded souls to be paid as a tax for your love to it, I just gave my soul over to Elon Musk and Donald Trump. They just took all my fucking labor right out of my fucking pockets. Did they earn it? No, they didn't. So, today's film we're discussing is a film called Starve Acre. Starve Acre is a revisiting for folk horror. And it is one of the stranger genres that's catching a lot of popularity in the horror cycles these days, folk horror. It's been around for a long time, but for some reason within the past, I want to say 10 years, right? It's becoming more so prominent and people are starting to explore it more.
There seems to be a folk horror craze going on. Yeah, last 10 years, maybe a little less. But yeah, there's a lot of different ones coming out. You can find a lot of them. Some of them are kind of like play with the genre. They don't go fully in, but you know, like the themes are all over the place right now.
Yeah, I think it's in a state of it's trying to define what it is. Because honestly, there's a few films out there that remind me of this one that people don't consider folk horror. Like, I'll argue Rosemary's Baby is folk horror. Considering, you know, it kind of has a similar vibe to this. The difference is it's just in the city, not out in the middle of nowhere. Whereas this one fits that aesthetic that it is out in the middle of nowhere. You can run, but the nearest person you will find is most likely associated with the thing you're running from. So what do you do in those 5 seconds? Like, you can't, there's only so far you can go until your car runs out of gas. And what are you going to do? Run?
You got it. Yep, that's exactly it.
No one's going to help you.
We can talk about some of the other folk horror themes that fit with this movie. But yeah, this movie, it reminds me, that really resonates me. It reminds me a lot of different movies, like in terms of plot, in terms of mood. It was just like for some reason, I was like just thinking of a lot of different other movies that I had seen while watching this.
Yeah, it borrows a lot from a lot of different movies. The Rosemary's Baby being one of them, which I said before. The Wicker Man, to other extents.
Did you ever watch that Icelandic movie Lamb?
Yes, yeah, we did. When we first touched on folk horror as a general subject, I watched that one, and then I felt a little tripped out because I'm like, what is happening? But this one, same vibe. The idea of like something that isn't really normal being the baby here, and you're just kind of like, what is happening? Why is this happening? And a lot of the backdrop is people coming to realizations about their lives, their personal lives, and how leaves them vulnerable to give themselves away to stuff like this. You know, like
Mhm.
that is one of the ultimate things with this, like, and folk horror as a whole. It's the idea of, yeah, the cards you dealt in this life sucked, so you will gladly turn yourself over to something else that might promise at least a somewhat better outcome than what you got. You know, it happened in that other one we might cover later on, Midsommar. Same with the Wicker Man. Same with once again even Rosemary's Baby. Like I go back to that one again. Like, you know, what did you do
Yeah.
to its eyes? And then, but by the end of it, she's smiling because at the end of the day, she did nurse and give birth to that thing that you never see inside the crib. So it's a similar thing here. It's like, what is it? These
Yeah.
folks are kind of been dealt a shitty hand, and the rabbit provides comfort. Or Jack.
Damn.
By the way, I didn't know my half rabbit brother was in a fucking movie. He wasn't supposed to do that. For those of you who don't know, also, in the beginning of the film, you get this weird poem dropped onto you, which I actually went to go look up. I'm like, is this a real poem? Because this looks a lot like the poem based on Jack of the Lantern. And then I was like, oh, wait, it's not. It's just inspired by the poem at the beginning. Pull this up.
It is an actual poem, but in the
It's
movie, it's
in
attributed to the archaeologist,
yeah, it's
his
based
father.
on the
Yeah,
book. In the book, they actually put that poem. The movie's based on a book. So the poem from the beginning.
yeah. A pretty recent book too. It's from 2019.
Yeah, I think that's got to be a record, right? Legit 1 year out in the market and you got yourself a movie.
Mhm.
Bastard.
Only we're that easy.
Was for this guy. So is it Jack on our land engraved his name, Dandelion Devil, one and the same, made end by townsfolk, he was cast away into the thick of the hellish fray. Then here we go. Jack grew restless in the cold abyss and begged the gods for him to dismiss. How long for that forest bloom, offspring of nature's womb? Jack, spirit of the fern, we call to thee now to return with any visage, any name, come to play thy game. So, like, when I saw that the first time, I'm like, that sounds a lot like the story of Jack of the Lantern. Do you guys know that story? Jack of the
No.
Lantern? Like, why we light jack o' lanterns on Halloween?
Yeah, somewhat. Yep.
So, like, the idea is Jack was a guy who used to fuck with people, and he was one of the ultimate, like, tricksters. Uh, Jack was such a trickster and such a scammer that he figured he could scam his way into heaven. So if you know the story of the devil, right? Like the devil is bound by one major thing, the handshake. When you make a deal with the devil, that's pretty much ironclad. You can't break a deal with the devil. So Jack pretty much went up to the devil and he would challenge him to shit and put his soul on the line. And then the devil would take his challenges at face value with such odd sort of weird things. So I think in one he goes like, "Oh, hey, Satan, yeah, I bet you that you can't get out of my wallet." What do you mean? If you shrunk down into my wallet, you can't. I bet you couldn't escape, or something like that. Satan
Mhm.
goes like, "I bet you I can. Bet your soul? Yes, I do." Was it shakes on it. So what does Jack do? He puts him in the pocket, but then he puts the pocket inside something that the devil can't cross through. And then he puts him in his pocket and he just carries the devil around. And he's like, all right, I'll let you go on one agreement. What's that? I am not going to hell. He handshake out, goes out. So Jack lives a life doing whatever the fuck he wants because he's like, I'm not going to hell now, so I can do whatever the fuck I want. When Jack dies, he goes to the pearly gates. At the pearly gates, St. Peter's waiting for him. Like, hey, buddy. He's like, hey, I'm allowed in, right? Because you saw how badly I fucked with the devil. The devil don't want me in. I've earned myself a ticket out of hell. I'm not going there anymore. And St. Peter's sitting there like, what makes you think you're allowed in here? Well, because he's like, yeah, you did a lot of bad things. You're not allowed in here. But I'm not. Yeah, go over there and ask him if you can go to hell with the rest of your bad company. You're not allowed in here, though. Beat it. So he goes back to hell and he tells the devil, like, hey, can I at least go to hell and be with some people? Even if it's in pain, I got somewhere to look forward to. The devil's like, you made a deal, partner. You ain't allowed in here neither. But he's like, you figure your shit out. You're not allowed in here neither. So Jack turns around, looks at heaven, gates, turns around, sees the gate in hell, abandon all hope. Yep. And he's stuck in the middle. He can't go anywhere. So you light the jack-o'-lanterns because that's pretty much all he can see along the way. People light the jack-o'-lanterns. They decorate them because it keeps him away from your house. You don't want him in your house. So you light the jack-o'-lantern to get him to go away. Which, when I read that poem, all of that comes around because, in essence, this thing is kind of stuck in the marsh. He's in the abyss. It's not allowed to really go anywhere. The tree where it was got cut down, and in essence, it really wants to just stay where it's at with these people. It doesn't want anybody to leave wherever it's at. It demands tribute. It demands all these things. And it's pretty much scamming them because at the end of the day, their fate, they're not really getting a son. He's just a creepy rabbit, but they feel like they're getting something out of it.
That is a fine definition of what a hare is.
Yeah,
a creepy rabbit.
Yeah, they're the violent type. They're not the cute cuddly bunnies. Like they're the vicious kind.
No, hares are actually kind of creepy looking because they're like rabbits, but they're not cute. They're more muscular. They're kind of they do just look more muscly. They have kind of more of a sculpted face. It's they're cool, but they are kind of creepy looking.
They're bigger too, aren't they?
Yes, they're much bigger.
They're bigger. They're more slender than a regular rabbit, than a bunny rabbit.
Yeah. Actually, so a jackrabbit, which we have in the southwest of the United States, that's a kind of hare.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you know what a jackrabbit looks like, that's a hare. And yeah, jackrabbits are they're not cottontails. They're really not cute. They're actually kind of scary. They're like the size of like a small to medium dog.
Yeah, they're big. They look like a chihuahua almost. The size of a chihuahua. Yeah. They're not. You can't domesticate them. They're pretty like ornery. I've heard stories. Yeah, they're rowdy. I've heard stories about people who try rescuing them and shit because they mistake them for a rabbit. And then when they get bigger, it's like, holy crap, this thing is scary looking. Like, this is not a rabbit. This is not what I thought it was.
Yeah.
There's actually a funny viral clip that happened on TikTok. Some guy was like out in the hiking and he saw this like rabbit, what he thought was a bunny, hurt. The brown bunny, he thought it was hurt. So he took it home. He fed it like a rabbit. He raised it, but then like he had it like in its pen or whatever. And he goes, "Yo, what is this? I thought this was a rabbit." And it was a hare that like legit looked up at him, and it was giving him like that creepy beady eye stare at him. He's like, "Yeah, this is not what I thought it was." And people were like, "Yeah, that's not a bunny, pal. That's a that's a hare. Bunnies are all cute and they like to be pet. To hare's peace was never an option. You better just open the door and let it go." This thing is not. You cannot domesticate those. You got to let it go.
Yeah, and there's the hair dance too. I was looking at this, if I have this right. This is actually something that I didn't know about, if you can believe it. But um, uh, during the mating season, uh, they thought that you've got these hares that are like going up on their hind legs and like fighting each other. From the photographs, it almost looks like kangaroos. You know
Yeah,
how
I've
male
seen them.
kangaroos fight each other? Yeah, yeah, that kind of looks like what these guys are doing. I was listening to a podcast though where they were saying that it could actually be females like shooing males away, where they're like, no, dude, I'm not into it. Like, not now. Like, just get
Mm-hmm.
away.
Some things never change.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Some things never change even through evolutionary time.
Yep.
Yep, they
No,
call those
Mr. Diddy, I said
historical
no.
traits.
Pow.
Hmm. Hair slap.
Just to add a little bit to that one. Hold on.
Yeah, that's gonna age well. One of these days, you're gonna time that in the worst way possible, and then you're just gonna have that documented for everyone to see.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
There we go.
So back to Nightmare Fuel hares, because I never considered hares to be even remotely scary until this film, and it's like, huh. I
Nah, they
wonder if
look
there's a
creepy when you see them in real life, dude. Those things are like, no.
Yeah, I know. It's like it's like so. I think that maybe as Americans, it might be different to us, particularly Americans that are that are from a part of the country where we don't have hairs. So, audience, all of us are from New York, and you only really have hairs once you get into the western part of the country. So we grew up with like cute, cuddly, little fresh-faced rabbits, but in the UK, where this country takes place, there are hares plenty. So people grow up with the idea of there's rabbits and there's hares, whereas like us, we only start to learn that there's hares when I don't know, when we start to get into folk horror movies or when we move out to the western part of the country like I did. And then you see these giant creepy rabbits that look like something between a bunny and a dog, and it freaks you out. So I don't know, maybe the image of a hare kind of lands differently with us.
No, it does. Like, but even then, though, like I've heard people in Europe say, no, those are creepy. Like, that's not a cute little bunny. That's a pissed off hare. You
The,
want to let it out of the house.
yeah, there have long been supernatural associations with hares. So there's associations with witchcraft. There was the idea that witches will turn themselves into hares in order to steal cattle's milk. So that could connect with this movie because at the end you have the hare suckling at
That is
Jules's
a
breast.
reach. That is a reach. You know it. You said it with a bold face.
No, but it's a thing that people actually are thinking out there, though. Like,
well, no, but the thing about this movie is that I don't think that it is drawing narrowly on one folkloric story. I think that it's kind of a Frankenstein thing. I think that
yeah,
the writer is borrowing from a bunch of different things and just kind of like rolling together a bunch of themes to create his own story. So, you know,
yeah,
maybe he got
it is a mishmash of stuff. It's like the story I
yeah,
pulled in the beginning, and then there's the story also. Somebody pointed out to me the tree is significant because the tree has a very big, deep tie to the pagan tribes that were in the area before
mhm.
Christians came in and cut the tree down. And it's one of those things like I've heard the story before. I think it's a uh, Norse thing where like the tree signifies the universe and we live like in the middle. Above is where, the gods are, below is the roots, which is planted into where we live. And then we live in Midgard, the center, And what they did was, because people were worshiping and doing rituals by the tree, the Christians came and cut it down, and that ended like the sacrifices that people were giving to the tree for the most part, until the tree calls out to people because it is the deity of the land. Just something I've heard a few places in these kinds of things where it's like, this is its domain, this is the god of this land, and you have to pay its tribute to it. And for some reason, the god doesn't present itself as a cool looking kid or anything like that. It picked a weird rabbit to I don't know why it just picks a weird rabbit that is just its embodiment. I don't know, because apparently it can shapeshift, right? But we never see it really do the job into shapeshifting. I remember
No,
somebody
then
said it can present itself as something you care about or something you want or something like that to make kind of draw you in, but it never does it.
yeah, it says like it kept referencing like how nature was like the god in the olden times, which is like called. It kind of makes it like a callback to how Native Americans revere the land, because some parts of Native American practices are kind of similar to the Nora practices, but Nora is just flat out say these things are gods. Native Americans not so much; you just honor the land and respect it.
Well, the thing is, Native Americans also believe there was something watching the land, and they also did do their own ways of providing, tributes to it via dances, smoke festivals, where like they would light certain things, bonfires, and like light it and pay tribute. There were sacrifices, but there was more so like, we thank you for your harvest, and now we're going to eat this. In this case, though, this was straight up sacrifices. There was a
In the notes, it was like the drawings were of a demonic hair, even though it supposedly could shapeshift. It in like that little one shot we have of like what the roots connected to was a demonic looking hair image. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
huh. I wonder if we'll ever touch on this. And spoilers, we don't.
By the
Yeah,
way,
no, I'm
just so anybody potentially listening knows, hey H Center, uh, most of you don't know about a movie from the '80s about some rabbits, aka hares, that scared
Night
and
of the
scarred.
Lepus.
Huh? You know what I'm
Night of the
talking?
Lepus. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, which one do you think I'm talking about? There's apparently this hare is known for being freaking angry and violent. Because there's a movie out there called Watership Down that was for
Oh,
children.
Watership Down, of course. Yes.
Oh, that nightmare fuel of an animation.
That was a kids
Richard
movie,
Adams.
people.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that movie is bloody. Like seriously, there's a scene where
Yep,
it like shows you the whole thing. There's a rabbit that just like grabs another one by the throat, shakes him, and kills. There's blood. It's just like
Yeah, that's a kid movie, kids, people. So anybody who goes around saying, I'm traumatized by the Pixar, the fact that the thing, I'm like, fuck you. I grew up with Watership Down. That deranged, ravenous, rabid-looking rabbit goes after the other rabbit and grabs him by the neck. Those like zombie rabbits attacking one another. The hell? Oh, the worst thing I ever saw was when Simba killed Scar. Shut up! I saw Ground Ward fight with that rabbit. It was scary. It shouldn't have been a thing. It should never happen. But I saw it.
Yeah, that was. I don't know how I came across that, and I might have a case for it to sue YouTube because I have no reason to get recommended that in my feed when I came across that thing.
You want to know more fucked up? They remade it in 2018.
They did.
yeah, with shitty CGI.
Yeah, I was like, yeah.
Hey, like just to make up for the fact that we traumatized so many children, let's just do this again. But
that's why
like,
everybody grew up hard. The generations before us, and we were the last ones to grow up hard because we saw this stupid shit. Do you want to know what the rating was for the original Ninja Turtles movie? I always tell people this: the live action one from the '90s. Do you know what the rating for that one was? What was it?
It was G.
I think it was PG, wasn't it?
It was PG. Nowadays, that shit would be PG-13 because we suck now.
You know. Okay, complete side discussion. I rarely see movies that are rated PG that aren't kids movies.
Because we suck now.
Like if if it's not a kids movie, it's going to be PG-13 or R.
Yeah.
There's rarely like a live action drama that's just PG. Likewise, there's rarely a kids movie that's actually G, because I think that the ratings board has just been stricter.
So
Since Shrek, it might be a combination of Shrek kind of setting the standard of you can go a little bit, you can go into PG if you're making a kids movie, but I think it's also just like the ratings board. Like I'm watching kids movies where it's like there's no reason, there's nothing wrong with this, and it's rated PG because of like mild peril, that sort of thing.
let me see something. I'm always curious. There's always an argument. What was the rating for Shrek? I've been told it's
It,
PG-13. I've been told it's
it was PG.
PG.
No, it was PG.
Yeah, it's PG. But
Yeah,
Shrek was the last
they were
one, though. After
they,
Shrek, they all come out PG-13. After Shrek,
the kids movies.
because after well, at least movies in Shrek's kind of realm, where like Shrek was, it's. I'm gonna tell you a few things about Shrek right now. If we go back to Matt Smith's ugly face, yeah, I said it. Shrek is one gigantic middle finger to Disney. We're like
That's
one
true.
or two letters away from, Will Eisner being called Lord Fuckwad, because that's what they used to call Will Eisner behind his back at Disney. I'm dead serious. When they wrote the original script, his name was Lord Fuckwad. Fuckwad. But after a while, they're like, yo, you're pushing it. You're going to know. Fine. Farquaad.
You got the PG one, and not
There's
G. It was definitely PG.
Yeah, it's PG, but it was PG-13 or PG, but like his name was originally Lord FAQUAAD, Fuckwad. They're like, we know what you're saying, dude. It's Fuckwad. Like, don't call him Fuckwad. Fine then, Lord Farquaad. So he's a little guy. He's a little man with a big head. It is. The people in Disney World, the people in Duloc, they were gonna call it something else. They were gonna call it like they had to change it to Duloc. And they all look like they're high on Valium. That's the workers at Disney World. The workers on Disney World have to adhere to so many rules that they have to take a hit of volume. Disney is the perfect cake. Those people are like 1 minute away from doing it. That's the joke, right? Like that whole movie is one big joke against all that stuff. And then Disney didn't like it because it outgrossed all their shitty movies that year. And then we got more Shrek clones, and the ratings board was attacked. What does all that have to do with this movie? It's easy. Back in the 80s, this movie would have been PG-13. That's all to say that. And just to also say fuck Disney and Matt Smith is ugly. So yes, can't not get a dig in once in a blue, people. Just can't avoid it.
Okay. Explain why you are so fixated on Matt Smith's
Because I used to watch Doctor Who and he tormented me for like 4 or 5 seasons, and I thought maybe he'd age into his fucking look, and he never did. He looks like a walking mannequin. And the more he looks into the camera with his deadpan eyes, like, oh, okay, eventually, this guy's going to be.
That's an interesting face.
Sir, that is a very political way of saying ugly. Just join me over on this side in the uncensored world.
Yeah, it's like when you make someone dinner and they say it tastes interesting. Nothing tastes interesting. There is no interesting taste. It tastes good or it tastes bad. I have never been interested by the way of food taste. Okay, sorry.
No, I'm just cheering with you because it's true. Nothing tastes interesting. Okay. But then again, I just learned over the years, say it sucks, they don't give you more. If you say it's interesting, they're just going to keep giving you more and giving you more. So just say it
That's
sucks.
what I do. That's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he goes just vomit in front of them.
What?
Yeah, just vomit in front of them.
Yeah. That's what I do when they serve me. Because I'm honest.
Yes, I will get you.
Very nice. Yes. Thank you, dear audience.
I can't help it. But so I actually wanted to ask you guys something about this one though, because there is something I was curious. Um, did you guys think it was gonna open up with the kid losing the kid the way that we did very early in?
I didn't. I didn't. No.
They
No,
were
that was really rough. That was really rough.
Mm-hmm.
And they did it in a way that really kind of made it feel like you were being given bad news because you're watching the scene and there's no dialogue really, or hardly any, and you're like, wait a minute, no, they're not going to do that. What? No, what? Come on, this early in the movie at least.
And then they
I thought
do.
the kid at
And they
Pony.
do, yeah.
I thought the kid killed Pony. It turns out he just blinded it. I'm like, I'm not sure which is better. I'm not sure which is better. Oh man.
It was really, really sad. You know, like it's a horror movie that, at least for that scene, it takes death very seriously.
I actually
Yeah,
think
it
it
could.
takes death
And
seriously
speaking of
throughout.
it reminding me, speaking of it reminding me of other movies. It it has one death, like one really tragic death that's kind of the linchpin of the whole movie. It reminded me of The Descent. You remember that movie?
Sort of.
It's the cave movie.
Ah, yes, that's the one where the girls go
Yeah,
into
well,
the cave.
at the beginning, her husband dies. You know that's not ruining it. It happens in the first scene in the movie, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a really really like not scary, sad death in the movie that like is sort of the like everything follows from that. Everything is surrounding that that death, and that's the thing that's haunting the characters.
Yeah, I remember. Didn't one of the girls have an affair with the guy behind the girl's back or something like that?
Yes, I think so.
Yes, I remember. Very loosely. I saw that movie one time and then the sequel really upset me and I didn't watch it. I never went back.
The sequels.
There was a sequel. Don't waste your time. Just
Mhm.
just don't. But yeah, no, this one did remind me of that. Another movie that I feel it also called back to, which is in the folk horror realm. Uh, Shit. It was done by the same guy who did Midsommar. It was his prior work.
Ari Aster.
Which one?
Ari Aster. It's Hereditary, right?
Hereditary.
Mhm.
Where when you lose the weird sister thing, and
Don't spoil that one.
I
Don't
know,
spoil that one.
but
That
when you
one that's like that's one of the most upsetting moments in cinema history. I
yes, it was.
that's but it everyone, if you haven't seen Hereditary and you want to, just prepare yourself. Just like
Yep,
really prepare yourself. It's a very upsetting movie.
very from
Good.
beginning to end.
It's really really good.
So as I was like
This is the
watching this,
masochism of horror fans, is I can recommend a movie while saying that it upset me like for
yeah,
days.
because like we know what you're walking into. It's not like when you go
Yeah,
watch
yeah, of course.
something presented by the Devil's Mouse, where the Devil's Mouse is you're supposed to feel happy, but people try to find tragedy in something that has no tragedy in it. All right, it's not a tragedy that Tarzan's parents got wasted, folks. All right, it's not. He couldn't have become one of the monkey people. That's it. That's how it goes. It's the reality of the story. All right, Bambi's mother getting shot midway through the movie is not that big of a tragedy to scar people.
Hold on, hold on. No, no, no. Him becoming the monkey man is the silver lining. It doesn't mean it was okay that his parents got wasted.
Fine.
By a cheetah. By a
There's a
cheetah.
difference between like something that you're glad happened and a silver lining. You know, it's like
I mean, I'm kind of glad they got wasted. They gave birth to that fucking ice lady. That's Disney canon now, by the way. I'm not kidding.
Wait. You switch gears on me. Which movie are
wait,
you?
hold on. Are you saying that Tarzan and Elsa are siblings?
Yes.
What?
Wait, hold on. What?
Wait, no, hold on. Back up.
We're very far afield, but we need to go down this road. Please explain yourself.
So you know
What
the
are you
boat that you see sail off in the end, in the beginning of Frozen?
Uh-huh.
That's the same boat by design. The animators do the boat the same way, and that's why they never come back because the boat gets sunk at sea. It's the same boat. It's Tarzan's parents' boat. I'm not
Yeah,
kidding
just
you.
if you
That's an
lost the seal
accepted
already.
theory. It's been
It's a theory,
canonical
though.
since that fucking song tormented my life. All right? All the fans found out about it, and now nobody wants to let that go? Well, yeah, there you go. I just ruined it for you. See? They were terrible parents, and they made they scarred a girl into fucking hiding her powers her whole life. There you go. They had it coming. Wasted by a cheetah. They have a half brother out there that hangs out with monkeys, and they even possibly have nieces and nephews they don't know about. There we go. We're good. Yep.
You know what I love about Tarzan
Yep.
is that he's taught English by English people, but he still speaks with an American accent.
Yeah, he does because he hates it.
Because it's
You know what? I like that movie. Now I can't see it the same way anymore. Thanks a lot, Pumpkin.
You're welcome. It's what I do around here. Mm-hmm.
but it follows this pattern of like no matter where a Disney movie takes place, no matter what time and place it takes place, the main character will always have an American accent, even though they're surrounded by people that speak with a British or a French
Pretty
accent.
much.
Yeah.
Just if you ask the question, does that logic is Tarzan? No, he might, but he'll never know because he never got out of the jungle now, did he? He's always in there hanging out with the fucking apes. He's the king of the apes now. There you go.
Wait, so isn't this more animal communication? Like similar to Liza Thornberry?
But he
He's
grew
a
up
male
among them grunting and shit. So
He was raised with the apes.
Yeah, he just grunts with the apes. I don't think it's really like
Which yeah.
Couldn't that be indicative of a possible
No.
communication?
No, Robin Williams used to fucking talk with an ape all the time. Coco the ape used to sign with Coco the ape and shit. They can talk back and forth. Nothing special about it. There you go. Ruin it for you. They didn't even give him powers.
So we started with mythical hares. We're now on signing apes.
No, we're just
destroying Disney to get there.
Here's where I'll connect all this shit. All right.
Okay.
Disney is evil and satanic. All right. I'm going to become a Republican now. You should not let Disney let your children watch Disney movies because they help to aid to these pagan gods. All right. Elsa is an evil pagan goddess who was cursed with the power of ice and killed her half of her village with ice burn. So it's the same thing that's happening here. All right. This rabbit is evil, and it's a fucking evil abomination from our Christian Lord up in heaven who makes sure that we pay 30% on taxes because that's what they tell us to do. Fucking. There's your connection. All right. Disney hides dicks in their movies, people. I've seen it. It's happening. They hide dicks in their movies and try to indoctrinate your kids into satanic practices so that then you come and worship the rabbit and you don't think about it, folks. By the time you've noticed, you gave up your soul, you gave up your money, and you gave up all your free time at Disney World in the strange small world. That's how it goes.
Sorry, folks. Tax season brings Royce and Pumpkin. We apologize for any and every emotional distress that you just endure and or experience during this live broadcast. We now bring you back to our regularly scheduled programming.
There we go.
Got that out of your system? Good now?
Hold on, one more.
I want more.
Oh, god damn, I hate Disney. We just somehow I attacked Disney on this one and they had nothing to do with it.
Not to reach.
He's
Okay,
got there you go. Somebody just put the castle and the mouse up. Yeah, you're welcome. Fucking Disney. So yes, Starve Acre. One more thing I actually wanted to ask you guys about this, and I'm gonna let you guys kind of see if you have any questions and trying to figure this one out. So I kind of dozed a bit because I work a 7-day schedule now. So I kind of like watched this one, and there's minutes where I paused and I tried to get my head around it again. So, uh, the Phantom of the Opera, Matt Smith, he wasn't his father's favorite, right? Because his father tried sacrificing him as a child, and the Jack didn't take it.
Yeah.
So that was his like inner struggle. If I right, I got it a little mixed up.
Well, so he didn't know. He only discovered that his father tried to sacrifice him by looking through his father's journals.
Yes,
Because
and
the house
then
they moved back into, the house that they move into was the house that the Matt Smith character,
yeah, he grew up.
He grew up there, but he didn't, like he was but a lad. He didn't really know what was going on, but he finds these pictures and these journal entries, and he puts it together, and he realizes, oh my gosh, my dad tried to sacrifice me to try to like get this god to show itself.
And if I'm not mistaken,
Talking
though,
about like how family can hurt you like nobody else, but that's on a different level.
yeah, if I'm mistaken, though, the reason why the rabbit didn't really take him was because the rabbit only took your favorites. It only took the ones you want, like the things that you genuinely cared for or loved or something like that. And the fact
Yeah,
that he
like
didn't accept was also something to make that means that his dad never viewed him as his favorite son or loved him as much as he thought. His dad kind of like the rabbit saw right through the smoke screen. Oh, you're just offering me a son, but you're not offering what you think is your best son to give me.
yeah.
Well, then why
Jack.
did the rabbit take Owen, the son that with asthma?
Well,
That was his favorite.
Owen was truly no, not favorite. He was truly loved by his
Yeah,
father. That's why
But not his
Jack took
mother.
him.
yeah,
No, both. It was both parents. He was truly loved. That's why the rabbit took him.
But
yeah,
the mother admits at the end that she intentionally didn't try to save Owen. She was in
because
kind of a dreamlike state. She was in kind of a dreamlike state, and we're meant to believe for most of the movie that she was just kind of like lost in her head or lost in whatever trance the supernatural energy around the area was putting her into. But she admits at the end that no, I let him get taken because I thought that we would be better without him.
because at that point, again, although they both love him, he was a.
Mm-hmm.
This is gonna sound dark, but this is also what happens when you kind of like. This is what happens when people fall down this rabbit hole. So they've got a lot of issues. The kid was ha literally. So that's that one. So they've got the kid was fighting. Owen was their son, right? I mixed his name up a
Yep.
bit. So the kid's fighting a
Owen was
school. They have a lot of trouble with this kid. I thought this was going to be about this kid mostly until they pulled the rug out under me on that one. But
yeah. It starts out as kind of like a troubled kid movie.
yeah,
Like it was reminding me of the Babadook.
bingo. Yep, it was giving me
Yeah.
Babadook vibes. And then when they pull the kid away, I'm like, "Ooh, shit. Okay, this is not where this was going." But at
It
the
was
end of the
Jack's fault.
yeah,
It was
yeah,
Jack's fault. He was to the kid, whispering to the kid. So the kid could technically was on the road to going mad. That's why I thought the movie was going, but then nope, they did not do that. Instead,
well,
yeah,
again, it's a matter of what happens. Like they're all distressed people, and when you're distressed, like this is something I learned in my religious studies class. In every religion across the world, right, from Islam to Christianity, from Celtic paganism to Norse paganism to Roman paganism, there is one thing that they all have in common that's in constant. When you are distressed, you are vulnerable. All of them have that. That is when you are trying in your best, most desperate moments to find a solution to something. in the worst way. Every religion across the board always tries to preach this sense of love yourself and try to think clearly and look beyond. For example, if there's a love, it sounds dark, but if there's a loved one and he's going to pass away, learn to cope, but do not make a deal with something evil to try to save their life, because that's where the sense of irony comes. I'll do whatever. All right, there's the handshake.
Mm-hmm.
I'll save his life, but 5 minutes later he's gonna go get hit by a bus. And this is a story that's in all of them. It's a different retelling, but it happens a lot. In this case, they're in a place that they don't want to be. He's being revisited by memories that he doesn't like. The kid is fighting at school. They're talking to a psychiatrist to handle it. They're hearing voices. When they hear those voices, the next thing is the voices sound more seductive to me than my reality does. I'm not going to give him the inhaler. I love this kid, but I think he would be better if we just didn't give him the inhaler. He'd be better with Jack in the trees. That's where he would be better.
What she says is we would be better off without him. She doesn't say he would be better off. She says we would be better off. It was a selfish decision.
Very selfish, but again, for as far as the rabbit's concerned, gotcha.
But we're skipping over the rabbit's influence over the son Owen, because it wasn't that bad, because Richard, his father, was just like, oh, he just like the kids are just misunderstanding him. The kids are mean, blah blah. He just needs like someone to give him like personal one-on-one time. And then at a point he does get that, and he was doing so much better, after the pony incident. But all of a sudden the wife gets like taken over by like the fog that's like approaching upon the property, and the next thing you know, her son is having an asthma attack, which is like, of course, the kid has to have some type of ailment in these movies, which I love and hate that.
This is a movie full of people underreacting to things.
Mm-hmm.
So the first example you just mentioned, Bolt, when he gouges out the eyes of a little girl's pony. The next scene is them literally just like driving him home and them sort of looking at each other like, this shit, like, what are we going to do about this? It's like, that's like, he just like dismembered an animal, like an animal that like, so, there's this play, Equus, where the main character does this to horses. Like he blinds horses. Again, like this, with this movie reminding me of all sorts of other things. But it's like when a character blinds a horse or does something terrible to a horse, like it's supposed to have like a real sucker punch on at least maybe like English speaking audiences, where eating horses in our culture is pretty taboo. Like they do it in France, but in America and Britain, like, horses are pretty like special animals. And the idea of like harming a horse is especially like some sort of like profound violation. But I mean, not even aside from it being a horse, like, he just like sadistically dismembered an animal, and they're just kind of driving home like, I don't know, he pulled on the girl's pigtails or something, and now they have to go to some sort of like parent-teacher thing to try to work this out. It's like that. It just seemed like they weren't as upset about this happening as they should have been. But I think that this is a movie where like underreacting to things, I think, is just sort of part of the tone of the movie. It's supposed to be kind of an understated movie with understated performances. Going further into the movie, when the hair stuff starts happening, like when he brings home the hair skeleton and it starts to, like come back to life before your eyes, the muscles and the skin and the fur, it starts growing back in in various stages. You know, like it kind of looks like a take home science experiment. Uh, you know, like he's weirded out and he brings it to the university, but he's not like, I don't know. He's looking at it with more curiosity than horror. It's like um uh he just doesn't see. And then and then when the wife comes into the know about this, about this hair in their house, about this hair, you know, like becoming their child, I don't know, they just don't seem to be as weirded out by these things as I think they should be. But um you know, just to like get more serious, I think that that is part of the movie's meditation on grief, because when you're grieving, and Jack, you might be able to relate to this because you and I, you know, went through some grief together. That when you're grieving, uh, you know, you don't feel like you're in a real world. You feel like you're in some sort of dream where eventually you're going to wake up, and it kind of numbs you to stuff. And you know, I feel like that's kind of part of the effect that the movie is happening, is that, you know, these parents have gone through something overwhelmingly tragic. They lost a child, and now they just don't know what's next. They don't know how to they don't know how to handle this and how to move forward. And so whatever's coming at them, it's sort of like, you know, well, I mean, the world doesn't feel real anyway, so like, I don't know, this just isn't, they're just not reacting the way they normally would.
I honestly think it's the influence of where they're at mixed with the grief. Uh, Especially recently, like I've learned over experiencing this over a lot of my life. When people lose someone, or you move to a different place, like uh, where they're at first, let's start down that road. They're in a place which already has a lot of trauma built in from the minute they
Mm-hmm.
get there. Because what is his name? Wrinkleface. He's not
Richard.
happy to be there. Like Wrinkleface is kind of like, they used to torment me with that stuff, and now I'm not happy because I am part robot and I cannot emote or look like a human after being Doctor Who for all those years. So Wrinkleface is kind of sitting there saying, I don't
He never
like
stepped
being
out of
here.
the TARDIS.
Huh?
He never stepped out of the TARDIS.
He shouldn't have buried his face deep into the
Good.
TARDIS somewhere. But anyways, he's kind of like confused and he's not happy to be there. He's stuck in his own way of where he once was. Then from there, that place doesn't bring back good childhood memories. Like, for example, if we were to go move into our childhood homes, we might have a better time of it than he is, because he's just, to him, that place was scary, and like his memory too is of him being naked out in the middle of the woods, right? Like they kind of like left him there out in the middle of the dark with the cold. So
Yeah, his dad was all types of fucked up.
yeah, so like with all that stuff, you're gonna act weird, and your
Yeah.
certain things are gonna mess with your psyche, and at that point, it's kind of a part of the game for the rabbit. All right, they're emotionally distressed, emotionally disheveled, so they're gonna be more susceptible to the influence, and off they go.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting to me about this one is, I don't know how to explain this, but I know like Celtic people who are into paganism are going to be a little upset by what I'm about to say, or they might take what I'm about to say in a different way. But they did a good job of using real symbols to kind of instill fear into the Christian audience, because some
Mm-hmm.
of the symbols you find are legitimate actual symbols that are still passed around in more so folkloric traditional rituals in parts of Ireland and the UK. But at the same time, they are misrepresented symbols because those are symbols of peace. And a lot of the symbols they're kind of used here in the sense of, yeah, keep killing people to appease this rabbit.
Yeah. From what research I have done on, and it's not a whole lot. It's not very in depth, but what I have done on pre-Christian Celtic religion is that there's just like no real solid evidence that there ever were human sacrifices.
No.
No, I mean that doesn't mean like in any like human sacrifices have happened, like in parts of the world, but as far as I can tell, like there's just no evidence that it ever happened in in pre-Christian Britain or Ireland.
Yeah, there is no evidence to support that those folks were actually doing that. Animals, yeah, they were. But people,
Animals, yeah. Yeah.
there's not much evidence to suggest that they were actually sacrificing people, at least in the UK. That part of the world, there's no ID, there's no official. It's, again, and I don't want to sound like I'm bashing Christians or anything like that, but this is a notion that sort of stems cool. It's not cool. You can't do that anymore. You can't do that anymore. That's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. And these things were kind of like, if you're drawn to, maybe doing paganism because things are different, you don't like the Christian system. They start telling you, they eat their babies, right? Yeah, that's right. Hell, like,
Is there evidence?
huh?
Yeah. No. Like there's like stereotypes, or just like I don't know stories about things that were done before Christianity. But the interesting thing about the coming of Christianity to Ireland and Britain is that the church was accommodating in the sense that it reappropriated pagan festivals and pagan customs to fit into a Christian practice. So a lot of pre-Christian traditions were just kind of like tweaked and said and they became no longer for these gods, but they became for the Christian God.
Yeah, Catholics
We
were
could do a
like,
whole we could actually do a whole podcast episode on that. It's really interesting.
yeah, we can
Could find
start when we get to
somebody.
we open up the holidays. We can actually start that one because
Yeah,
like
yeah.
there's a
So
whole
it
bunch there. We're not going to be
yeah.
able to do this during Easter. If not, I would have also said we can do it during Easter because I think Easter
But
is one of them.
this is a good Easter movie. Um, uh,
Oh
because
yes,
in Europe, it's the Easter hare. Only in America is it the Easter rabbit or the Easter bunny. Which we typically view as a rabbit. Like look at any chocolate sculpture of the Easter bunny. It looks more like a rabbit than a hare. Anyway, but I want to know, like, is there good evidence that in Celtic pagan societies there were wild sexual orgies?
so it's something that's commonly depicted, but it was more so not like how do I put this? It's commonly depicted, but it's not something as though everybody's getting down in some kind of nasty floor area type thing.
Mm-hmm.
To my
Yeah.
understanding, for example, if a chief was marrying his daughter off to another chief's son, right? The
Mm-hmm.
consummation was a big deal. Where like
Mm-hmm.
everyone is present for that. Like
Right.
they're all watching that. Uh, and the other interesting side of it too is that a lot of those rituals and their customs are sort of lost to time because once the full once the adaptation happens, not everybody's writing everything down and it's not being chiseled like the Romans had it. This is on paper, so things are burnt, things are lost, and then factor in that if you were still living out in the woods with those people, they were not exactly writing everything down. It was all passed down verbally. And if you have a bunch of people that are like, "Well, I don't think we need to preserve that." No, no, we don't. We don't need to preserve that. We're just gonna tear that up, eh? And we're not gonna share that with nobody. No, 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 no. And that's it.
Yeah.
It's over. Uh, factor into that British
Yeah,
folkloric history is
yeah.
very, very like it's also very anti-pagan. Like King Arthur fought against the Saxons, who were like the pagan invaders, the Viking invaders. It's like they're very much rooted in that shit. Like this is not cool in British folklore.
Right. Yes, a lot of the records that we have of pre-Christian Britain come from Julius Caesar, and Caesar was, like trying to conquer the people.
Yeah.
So, like don't take everything that he says that seriously. But no. I want to know more about the like kind of the sexual norms of that culture, because I often find that um sometimes people exaggerate how sexually liberal pre-Christian or non-Western cultures are.
Yeah. So the
Yeah.
other side of it too is, I hate to sound like, oh, they were so evolutionary. It's not that, man. They didn't know any better. Like in
Mhm.
the dawn of man, in the dawn of they didn't know any better that you shouldn't really be banging your cousin. Like you really shouldn't be
Yeah,
banging your
yeah. What?
siblings.
Well, no, your siblings, like incest taboo at the full sibling level is pretty old,
Yeah,
and that's very likely evolutionary based, because like you're very closely related. You probably have some of the same bad recessive traits that we don't want expressed. But cousins, you're still not that closely related with your cousins, and cousins marrying each other was socially acceptable, it, like into the early, even like close to the mid 20th century. So,
and in
that's a
some
newer
parts of the
taboo.
world, it's still a thing. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I knew somebody who their parents were cousins. They were perfectly fine. There were no mental
Wow, yeah,
defects with them, but it
yeah.
was perfectly
Um,
normal. Uh, To me, I'm
yeah,
like, ew, but there was a thing. It's still a practice thing. But what
mhm.
does that have to do with Starve Acre and all this
What does that have to do with
stuff?
Starve Acre? Yes. What does that have to do with hairs?
It's because at the end of the day, right, where they're at, what's mysterious is that it's stuff that is long gone. Like they're tapping into something that is not. It looks strange to us, but it's only strange because, like I just mentioned right now, records are gone. Cultures have changed. Different things have come in and told you this is evil. And that rabbit is pretty much an encompass of like, yeah, this is why this shit is evil. But it's all makes for a good story as to what people perceive it to be, but in reality, it's really not. Like a lot of that stuff wasn't really like that. There were some things that some of the old tribes back in the day did do that was, even by today's standard, pretty savage and cruel, like scalping, etc. But at the same time, when you start to see like, oh, okay, yeah, no, these things preach love and all this stuff too, and the religions have more things in common than not, what we learn is that why this stuff scares you is because you learn you don't really understand what came before your bubble. Like anybody who's probably seen this, we grew up in a post Abrahamic society. Mohammed Abrahamic society. That means we are used to a one God religion for the most part, especially here in the West, and that is it. Only select cultures still practice where Christianity is monotheistic and the others are polytheistic. Yes, I always get these mixed up.
Polytheistic.
Certain
Yes.
cultures are
Okay.
still
Yeah.
practicing polytheistic religions. The Indians,
Yeah.
India, China, and Japan for sure are
Mhm.
still practicing polytheistic religions. But then, for example, all of everyone else in line, they are not. They are worshiping Allah or they're worshiping God. That's about it. There is
Well,
no.
you know how the old joke goes: monotheists believe in one god, polytheists believe in many gods, and Unitarians believe in at most one god.
Oh boy, those people. So, why is this creepy? Well, Same reason why Lovecraftian stuff was creepy. You
I was
really don't
just
know what's
about
out
to
there.
ask you. I was just about to ask you, were you getting Lovecraft themes
Yep.
or Lovecraft vibes from this movie?
Yeah, because it's looking into the abyss and the unknown. You really don't know what came before you did.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah, the
especially
horror
like
of the
when you get a good look
yeah,
out into the. You ever seen the ocean in the fog on a foggy day?
yep,
When
yeah.
you look out there, you're like, what is out there? You're like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't.
It's
Hmm.
Yeah, because when you're looking out onto the ocean in the fog, it's like you know that it's vast. But when it's clear, you can get kind of an idea of how vast it is. But when it's foggy, it's like you know it's vast, but it's still like shrouded. You can't really tell how vast it is, and that makes it seem eternal. And yet there's fog around you, so you also feel enclosed. It's like you both feel like you're in empty space and in enclosed space. It's delightfully terrifying.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
and it's,
What another Lovecraftian thing that I got from this was so, like I mentioned before, when you've got the rabbit that's coming back to life before your eyes, that's a Lovecraftian image because it's nature doing something that it ought not do. It's just like it's decomposition, but in reverse. And yet it's like it's happening right in front of you. It's like weird it's like this weird abomination of nature. It's there's that sort of thing all throughout Lovecraft.
I'll actually ask you one question. Is it an abomination of nature if it's allowed to happen, or is it just what we've been told is an
Yeah,
abomination of nature? You know
right.
what I mean?
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, yeah. It's and yeah, there was another podcast I was listening to where they were talking about this theme in Lovecraft, where you know there is a difference between just discovering something new about nature that you didn't know or discovering something that kind of makes you readjust um uh or like reconsider what you thought you knew about the world in a way that's kind of like exciting and cool where it's like oh wow, I need to kind of update my model on how I think the world works. But then there's a level there's a level at which your assumptions can be violated that is beyond fascinating and gets into the unsettling and the terrifying and the weird, where it's like it's no longer interesting. It's more like it's kind of like it kind of breaks you a little bit. And it's hard to tell where that line is when it goes from fascinating to terrifying.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yep. Makes perfect
Yeah.
sense. And that's kind of where we're at right now. It's fascinating. I was actually like pointing this out. We only think it's an abomination because we can only see up to the sky, but we can't see past the stars. We
Mhm.
really don't know what is and what isn't possible out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In this
Yeah.
situation, you see this rabbit that just suddenly starts regenerating itself. Well, it might look screwed up, but if you would have gone back a couple thousand years, the idea of only one God creating the entire universe, the entire planet, oh, that's nonsense. Look at how much detail goes into the. Not one can't do it. Burn him for saying that, speaking ill of Zeus this way. I can't believe I heard this. Ah! I hate to sound, again, sacrilegious or anything, but Christianity is legitimately based off of somebody perverting the nature of things that they were used to seeing at the time. Jesus was performing miracles that at their moment when they saw those things, he wasn't supposed to be doing that. Like, wait a minute, you're not from Olympus. How are you doing that? We don't like you. And, unfortunately, it throws a lot of other cultures around. Jewish people like, you can't be our Messiah because, again, depending on which Bible you read, because there's many different interpretations of the Bible out there, unfortunately. There's not one there's only if you want the real Bible, you have to go dig deep into the Hebrew ones if you want to really get into it in deep Aramaic. You might have some interpretation saying the Jews are saying, "You're not our Messiah because you aren't coming on the right way you're supposed to," whereas other people will turn around and say, "We don't want to stop collecting the tributes at our temple. That's why you're not the Messiah. You can't be the Messiah." Like, but what did I just point out? These are things that have been reinterpreted, readjusted, and reswitched over the years to something that is, over 1,000 years, we have a very loose thread of a blanket, right? We can't say it is. But when you hear a story of a rabbit coming to life, you're kind of like, is it so far fetched when you start to put everything else into context? This is just what these people have seen. What was in the land? What came before this? It's very, very creepy, very trippy, and I hate paying taxes. Bolt, you have any opinions?
I feel like their natural response to just let the hair go was it was a well ditched effort to avoid the oncoming mayhem that ensued because like as you mentioned, is like they didn't know what came before. I mean, although Richard was researching his dad's studies and just came to the gruesome realization during his process of digging up these old roots that yeah, it was part of like a some type of old type of ritual. But like his first instinct was to kind of just like get the hair's trust and get it comfortable, or for them to like capture it and then immediately release it without any harm. Like that's all they wanted to do, just get the hair back into the wild. They didn't think nothing much of it, and that was it. Whereas other people would like how they have like maybe visceral reactions to a hair coming back from seemingly the dead. Funny enough, Richie never told his wife where that hair came from. All she just sees is her husband finding solace in an animal after they just lost their son. And so it's like you mentioned before, like grief hits people in various ways, and to your point, you need to learn how to cope. Them coping by taking care of this deity-esque animal, not my preferred way to go, but everyone's different.
No, it is. Everyone is different, but there is something similar that all people experience over the years.
Mm-hmm.
In moments of distress and pain, we are all susceptible to influence, which is why some folks say, when you are feeling that way, take a step aside and collect your thoughts before you do something you can't, undo, you know? And in
Yeah.
this case, these people they didn't do that. They just went ahead and drank the Kool-Aid and decided to do
Mm-hmm.
something you can't
Yeah.
really undo. And
You
then they
know,
gave their souls to
Richard,
Disney. Right, no, not
Richard for
Disney.
a sec, like he's
Sorry, continue.
Richard, for a little bit, he's having none of this shit, but you can see him kind of breaking down, where it's like eventually it's like, all right, fine, we'll kill your sister. Okay, fine, you killed my colleague. Like whatever. We'll do this pagan thing. Oh, he needs three. Okay, fine.
Yeah, after a while, you can't keep fighting the.
Yeah, I can't keep fighting. You just kind of see him worn down.
Yeah, how do I explain it?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can't keep
But I
fighting the
was
wave.
uh-huh, yeah. You know, uh, so I'm very interested in the genre of folk horror, and for a little while I was wondering, like, well, what is it? I've seen this advertised as folk horror, so I was kind of like waiting for all of the tropes to come together. I was like, rural setting, okay, check. In folk horror, the rural is often like the object of horror. It's like remoteness itself is supposed to be scary, but the reason why Rosemary's Baby, like we mentioned earlier, the reason why Rosemary's Baby is considered folk horror, though it doesn't take place in a rural setting, is because it's kind of like a it is it's because it's it's someone who is discovering the conspiracy around them. And by the end, he realizes, oh, wow, everybody else in the movie has been involved in this, and I'm just finding out about it. So I was wondering, so I was waiting for that kind of thing to come together, and it finally did, and I was gratified. But um, but yeah, yeah. I was looking at some reviews of this too, and there was one review that called this movie part of the trend of evil twig movies.
Evil
Evil twigs, yeah.
It's always something that looks like a bunch of sticks tied together.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
evil.
So
It's
what they're
evil, I tells you.
yeah. So they're talking about the kinds of folk horror movies that like take place in the English countryside, and there's like creepy trees and pagan symbology, which often involves kind of like um uh these structures that are made of a lot of dead sticks. Like just sort of as religious symbols or offerings um uh or like on the cover of this movie with twigs growing out of the hare's face. It's a good way to describe the genre. Evil twigs.
Yeah, it's evil
uh,
twig syndrome.
I love it. Yeah,
It's funny. That's
but
actually
I
a
love
good
it
way of
because
putting it.
I love it because I love this sort of movie. I don't think that this is the best of evil twig movies or folk horror movies. I enjoy this movie. Um, uh, it's got some really good performances. It's creepy. I like a lot of the cinematography and the kind of the landscape shots. What I really like is the extreme close-ups that you get throughout the movie at the different points, where it's like a close-up of the muscles growing between the bones on the rabbit, but you get that shot before you really learn what that is. So it's a kind of foreshadowing, but the close up is so extreme. You're so close to this image that you're not sure what you're looking at, and it's disorienting. It's a really cool effect. So there are a lot of things that I really like about this movie, but I don't think it's a great movie. I It didn't blow me away, and I think partly because when I watch a folk horror movie, I expect, some of the tropes to come together because it's like, well, if you're a fan of a particular genre, like you do want some of the tropes to be there because those are the things that make you like the genre. Those are the things that make you want to watch more of those kinds of movies. Like people say that all jazz sounds the same. Well, like a lot of that is just what makes it jazz. Like the reason I like jazz is because I like that it all kind of sounds like that, but it does different. But different artists have their own styles. Anyway, but so I did enjoy how in this movie a lot of the tropes were kind of coming together. But one thing that I do expect from a really good folk horror movie is for the ending to like really, really shock me and like either through something that's just incredibly scary or just incredibly weird, like something that I just could never imagine thinking of on my own. And this movie, it just sort of like, you know, you learn about the hare comes to life, then they have to sacrifice some people, and then the hare just starts, suckling at her breast. It's like, I don't know, maybe this will reveal how weird I am, but I didn't find anything about the end of the movie that weird. If you want a movie that deals with these sorts of themes of like grieving parents taking care of an animal child with a but has an ending that will blow you away with its weirdness, try Lamb. Like we mentioned earlier, Lamb has a better ending than this movie does.
Yeah, it's
and
also a
better.
bit more climactic.
Better is a strong statement. Like,
Has a stronger finish.
Yes, yeah, no, no, like this movie, it just there was one review. There was one reviewer that I read that said that it wasn't weird enough, and yeah, I completely agree. I think it should have gone harder.
It wasn't weird enough.
It wasn't weird enough. No.
Not for those
Okay.
sick people. It wasn't weird enough.
Yeah, yeah, not for sickos like me.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm
Like,
gonna
okay,
give it a bit of credit. It was plenty weird. However, it was more so of a straight to the point story. Like this one didn't dance around with a big twist reveal. It was like, now once her sister spoke to his father and was like, there's something going on. He's like, you should be happy he selected them. This is a good thing. Hey, lady, you're fucked. The fact you didn't run
that
that guy over and bail when you should have, this is it. You're driving
that
back to your
was
doom.
that
It was nice
the
knowing you,
father.
lady.
That wasn't the father.
Well, whoever that guy was, I'm like, yeah, lady,
He
you
was
fucked up.
the gardener. He was the gardener who was friends with the father.
Yes,
Yeah.
like that guy. I'm sorry. There's moments where I
Well,
drifted
so
out.
that's all right. But that's so when he finds out, when Matt Smith finds out that his father tried to sacrifice him, that is that's a good example of a part of a horror movie where the horror is in the information that you find out rather than what you see in a scene. So you
Yeah,
don't see, there's no flashback. What they could have done is they could have done a flashback to his father like dragging him out and putting him out into the field, and like with all sorts of horrifying imagery and like the kid crying and everything. You could have done that, but he didn't. He just you just very briefly see a photo of him standing out in the field naked, and he says he tried to sacrifice me. It's sort of, and like that's just much more effective because you're finding out what happened with him. And I just think it's much more, I think it's often more effective when the horror is not in the scene that you witness but in the information that you find out.
yeah. Because it's like your mind can fill in the blanks a lot creepier than what you see.
Yeah, yeah, it's almost like an aha moment where it's like, oh, that's what happened. Oh no.
Yeah. Uh oh.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, maybe they went a little too far with him explicitly saying he tried to sacrifice me. I think maybe they could have had him, they could have just shown you the papers and like allowed you to put it together. But it was still it's still a good example of them holding back on showing you everything and then just like allowing you to allowing for something to just learn something that scares you.
No, I thought it was a good way of putting it, though. Like, I am gonna agree with the interviewer. Uh, this one does kind of just fall at the ending. It wasn't a bad film. It just at the ending is where it kind of like, come on, like we wanna. All right, so it is what it is. They're just going to be worshiping that bunny, and that's about it. They're worshiping the bunny. That's it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So no, I think it's a good movie. It's definitely worth people watching. All of you out there, you should watch it. It's a good movie. You should get a Shutter subscription, so you can watch these movies and so that we can get a sponsorship from them.
Yes,
Subtle. Subtle, real subtle.
yes. And speaking of sponsorships, I am working on one. That coffee wasn't too bad. I miss it. I miss back when Bones used to make that flavor. So I'll keep us more informed on that one when the time comes.
Whoa. Okay.
Just got to make contact. I tried it. It was actually good.
Th-
And
th-
I like the way that they
This
quoted
coffee
me on
will
that.
raise the hair on the back of your neck.
That actually, it's more so a barber style one. we get that one, I'm gonna go watch Sweeney Todd because I actually did like the
Oh,
flavor I picked. They don't have
Bolt
that
just
flavor anywhere anymore. Say what? Sorry.
After I made that bad joke, Bolt just disappeared. I'm like, he quit the podcast.
Yeah, yeah. This is Locale Live. We just fire people, then bring them back. Without all the drama and all of the horrible people working here. That's what we are. So, uh, honestly, I think we've kind of given as many thoughts on this one as we can because there was a lot to chew with this one. But the one person I didn't hear much from is the robot. Because unless I hit this soundboard, the robot doesn't activate. Let's see here. All right. Thoughts, opinions. Couldn't hear you,
Was
robot.
it weird enough
Malfunction.
for you? Bolt, was it weird enough for you?
I mean, in terms of folk horror, this is it landed the weirdness like almost dead on. I mean, I agree. Just like Lamb definitely far to see it in terms of weirdness and in several aspects, but in terms of like certain like undertones of the movie, I feel like it held up pretty well. Although I will say like it did fumble the ending a bit, but it's still a decent watch. But yeah, I would say the first 5 minutes. Actually, it wasn't even 5 minutes. It was like the first like 3 to 4 minutes of the movie was like wow. Like I had to rewatch that upon first viewing because like I thought I missed something because the how drastic things just hit the fan was just like, well,
Yeah.
okay, all right. So much for me trying to finally get a beat on this genre of movies. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna go into every folk horror movie with no expectations, so something weird is about to go down, and that probably won't even hold up well on the next one we do. But
In
yeah,
all fairness, that's just how you should be approaching this kind of film as a whole.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hate to be
Have no
that person.
expectations. Have no
yeah, I'm
expectations. Don't watch
Hmm.
trailers. I'm against trailers for horror films.
oh, like I don't watch trailers for horror films. I
Yeah.
have not, and I will not, because
This
they
is
give away so much stuff.
an interesting difference between me and my wife is that she likes to like thoroughly know like what she's getting into before she watches a movie, particularly if it's a horror movie. She likes to watch trailers. She doesn't like to know the ending, she doesn't like to know the whole plot, but she wants to get an idea of what sort of movie it is before she commits an hour and a half or so of her life to it. But I like to just know that it's good and know nothing else. I don't watch trailers. I don't read, like I don't read reviews before I watch the movie. I just like to know that it's good and then go for it.
So I'll watch a trailer, but I'm very conservative with how I watch the trailer. If I see that the trailer's giving away too much plot, then I don't.
Yeah.
I stay away. I'm like, all right, you already got me. The general idea is,
Yeah.
you know, there's a killer in the woods stalking a bunch of stupid teenagers. Gotcha.
Boo.
Done. I'm in. You had me at the
Mhm.
stupid kids getting murdered. We're in. I'm good. I don't need
Yeah.
to know. I don't need to stay too far. Sometimes you stay too far and then you see an ending. Get a spoiler.
Yeah. The movie that whose trailer made me swear off trailers for horror films was Sinister, because I had watched Sinister, really liked it, and then recommended it to my wife, and she said, "Well, let's watch a trailer." Okay, I had never watched the trailer, but I've seen the movie, so fine. Um, we sit down, and they give it. Okay, so I'm gonna give away something about Sinister, but they give away the plot point that this is some kind of like they give away the identity of the supernatural force that is in Sinister in the trailer. They like say its name, they say its origin, like when that folklorist is coming and looking, and like when they finally determine, oh, this is the monster that it is. That's in the trailer. But when I was watching the movie, that was like a big shock for me, and they gave it away in the trailer.
You're not supposed to give it away in the trailer. You're supposed to.
Give it away in the trailer. It was infuriating. So since then, I was already hesitant about trailers for horror films at that point, but after that, I was just like, okay, I'm never watching a trailer for a horror film again if I can help it.
No, I avoid them. So there was a movie this was a movie like almost 15 years ago. Something called Armored, and a lot of people I know were like really excited to go see Armored. But when I saw the trailer, I'm like, you're literally giving away the whole movie here, man. Like the whole movie, beat for beat, like everything. You even gave away the ending in the final cut. So like, we're good. I don't need to see this movie now. I already know what happens.
Yeah.
The girl I was dating at the time, she's like, "Oh, you would see it?" I'm like, "All right." I hate to be this person, but I'm like, they said the whole thing in the trailer, and I was always that person. And then also, I'll tell you one more thing. When I see a certain actor in a movie, I already know what's gonna happen. So, uh, for example, I saw everybody was telling me like almost 15 years ago, you really need to go see Shutter Island. It's gonna be a good movie. I'm like, is that a Leonardo DiCaprio movie? Yes. I already know what happens. Like, how can you know what happens? I'm like, I already know what happens. He ain't getting off the island because of Leonardo DiCaprio movie. He dies in every one of his movies as per request in his contracts. I'm not watching that.
Really?
Yeah,
No, not every movie.
that's apparently a request of his. He prefers to die in his film.
To die.
He did not die in Wolf
of
of Wall Street.
He doesn't
He
always
die.
do it, but it's a thing. He prefers, if he can do it, he'll do it. That's like his thing, apparently.
Did you ever watch Shutter Island?
So I wound up watching Shutter Island. My brother rented it back when, that was the thing you did. He rents it. I watch it. And then, there's a scene where they're like, well, partner, I guess we've investigated everything there is to investigate here. I guess it's time for us to go home. And then, as they're sleeping, I see a bunch of ice hitting the window. I'm like, he's crazy. My brother's like, what? I'm like, he's crazy. They're not getting off that island. He's a psycho. It's all in his head. They're going to kill him by the end of this movie. How much you want to bet? He's like, $10. $10, you're on.
Well, they lobotomize him, don't they?
Yes, I only got $5. I was half right. Like, he's not coming off the island. Right. He wasn't coming off the island. I knew he was already crazy. So I'm like, Leonardo DiCaprio makes the same goddamn movie all the time. So I'm like, we're good. I'm all right, fine. He killed the art.
Shutter Island good.
Say what?
I like Shutter Island a lot.
It was a good film, but you know what? Had you replaced him with maybe Tom Hardy or Jude Law, I'd be like, all right, yeah, he might. I'm going to be shocked. But because Leonardo DiCaprio, I'm like, yeah, we know what's going to happen here. We know. Was that a Scorsese film?
Yes, it was a Scorsese film.
I did not know that was a Scorsese film.
Not just another run-of-the-mill Leonardo DiCaprio movie. Martin Scorsese directed it.
Oh, that's where they started doing their movies together, I guess?
They were doing movies together for a while. Well, I mean, they still are. Like Killers of the Flower Moon had
Well, he's doing the H.H. Holmes movie with Scorsese.
Oh, really? Devil in the White City?
Yep, that's gonna be a Scorsese movie.
Hopefully they do that right, because the last thing we need is to romanticize a serial killer, because we all know how well that goes over here in the West. Bunch of freaking idiots.
Well, I'm actually.
Now, is it going to be? Is it going to be 3.5 hours long?
Probably.
Oh my!
I love long movies.
That's probably going to be that long. Like, we already know.
You need to go reboot after that sentence.
I mean, it's probably going to be 3 hours long because it's how they handle business. Like, it's a Scorsese movie. To my understanding, Scorsese's, I heard him say somewhere that every movie he does could be his last movie, so he's trying to get the best. He does everything in his ability to make sure he has everything in the final product, which is why like a lot of his films have been extremely and ridiculously long uh since he started doing them, like over the past, like I think it's like in the past 10 years. For example, like The
This movie,
Irishman, long as hell.
yeah, that was like 4 hours long, I think.
Yeah, I saw. I made a point to sit down and watch that one the moment I got a chance. I'm like, I'm only gonna get one shot at this, and I don't get a second one, so I better make use of it like right now. And I
It's
was not
great.
wrong.
It's great. I love that movie.
It was good, The Irishman. I only had one complaint. Uh, you really should have hired different actors to portray the different time periods. Robert De Niro is too old to be playing certain characters. That's all. Like that infamous scene where he beats up the guy outside the store, and you can tell Robert De Niro can't move no more. I'm like, yeah,
There's a
yeah,
such thing as old man strength, and there's such thing as Hollywood nepotism.
yep.
Yeah.
And
Well,
latter.
I mean, it was still impressive. Maybe you could catch it here and there, but it was still impressive, the reverse aging.
Mm,
'Cause it's
They're calling him
easier.
kid and some scenes, and I'm like, dude, he's not a kid. He could be your dad. Like, stop calling him kid. Just stop.
Because it is easier from a makeup perspective, and I think they used some CG to help out. But from a makeup perspective, it's easier to make someone look older than younger.
it's also easier to hire different people.
It's easier to turn around and put Leonardo DiCaprio in the young people scenes, and then put Robert De Niro in the old man scenes, and I think we would have
Yeah, yeah.
been.
What he could have done is he could have just done the Godfather 2 thing, where you have a different actor playing the younger version. It's
Which,
fine.
fun fact, Leonardo DiCaprio was tapped to play one of the Corleones a couple years ago.
Oh, in like a Godfather reboot.
No, so there is a Godfather 4 script out there that just never,
Why?
it's been stuck in development hell forever. It is
Why?
the
Is
actual,
Coppola signed up to do it?
it's actually the final script following part 3. The problem is part 3 was so poorly done that although this script people have said is the superior script, uh, it was done so poorly and handled so poorly that there is a fear of doing it again. The Coppola, I think, was okay with it when he saw it, but I don't think he's around anymore, right? Francis Ford Coppola, he's not around anymore,
He's
right?
still alive.
He's still around.
I'm still.
So
I'm pretty sure he's still alive.
yeah, something happened with it, but he was tapped to play, and he agreed to do it. Uh, Sonny Corleone's son, who is the final Don by the end of the third one. I forget his name in that one, but at the end of the day, that's what they were planning, and then that
I
never
don't even
came through.
remember. Really, I don't even really remember the third one that well.
No one should. It was just it
Yeah, yeah. It's
wasn't
a
a good movie. Like,
famously bad movie. It
but yes,
came
so
out. It came out the same year as Goodfellas too. So there was a clear winner that year of mob movie.
well, that's because at that point you start seeing how things change, and it's like, what does this have to do with Starve Acre? I'm actually going to tie this one in because it is irrelevant to what we're talking about. This is slowly becoming the preferred horror story, folk horror. This is the one that when I'm on TikTok, these are the types of films that are being heralded by the masses. A couple years ago, I remember when what do you call it, Midsommar came out, and
Mhm.
everybody was like, "You must watch this." Which, speaking of, I think that's the next one on our list if our other plans
Yeah,
come through next time. But for our other
that's
thing,
another. That's another good Evil Twigs movie.
yes, like that's our next one on our list here.
Yeah.
But what does that have to do with it? We go through things in films that like are trends that change. And right now, we are experiencing in horror a change and a shift where the fans are asking for more films like this one. And what's
Yeah.
interesting is Starve Acre to me is kind of an example of, hey, we can do this and we can do this on a smaller budget than everything else you've ever seen before. And we are doing it on much smaller budgets than we were used to seeing. And this film, if you think about it, the only thing that they probably spent a penny on was the rabbit CGI, because I don't
It
think you
was
could.
it was animatronic.
Was it animatronic, the rabbit?
Maybe it was a combination of CG and
I feel
animatronic,
like it was a
but
combination. There's periods where it stares
yeah,
at people and looks all funky. I'm like, were you really
mhm.
there? This is a bit weird.
It's kind of wall-eyed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like he has a bit of a far and away glaze. I'm like, what's up with this
Yeah.
thing?
Mhm.
But it's interesting. Like we're kind of there, and Starve Acre is kind of like to me the first sort of gasp in that. Yeah, we're starting to do these films. You're gonna see them more often. When you see them more
Mhm.
often, you'll know. Like, yeah, this is that type of genre. So I'm wondering
Yeah,
what's gonna come next out of these types of films because it's fascinating to see.
it
So
is
that's
interesting. Yeah, we're in a folk horror craze. I don't know if we're in a golden age because I haven't seen one that I think is a great film yet. Not like The Wicker Man. The Wicker Man is like the OG folk horror movie and still the best. There is a great folk horror movie that came out in I think it's 2011, so long before this craze. But you ever seen Kill List?
I've heard of it, never seen it.
It's great. It's really good. Yeah, we should do that at some point.
'Cause I feel like that one
But
came out with
yeah,
another
so
one.
there's a lot of these there's a lot of these folk horror movies coming out now. Oh wait, Lamb is great. I think Lamb is a great movie. Okay. No. Yeah, Lamb is great. So maybe we are in something like a golden age, but
I
I
think we're
think
in the golden
more
age right now of this kind of
okay.
film.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Well,
scary.
I'll watch more of them and see if I can find more great ones.
Yeah, we're in that age right now because I honestly think the reason why we're in it is because we're getting a lot of them because there is such a high demand. Like right now for our generation, this generation anyway, the horror movie that is a big deal is the folk horror. Whereas, before, like when we were kids, it was ghost movies. And for like my siblings, it was the murder mystery scream slasher. You go
Mhm.
ask my dad what the movies were in his day and age. It was the original slasher film from the 80s, the Jason
Well,
Voorhees and all that good
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
So I
Well,
think for us, it's this.
this is the genre of choice for like horror nerds like us.
Yeah.
But for like the wider audiences, I don't know what the kind of preferred because like my sense is that horror just really isn't that popular right now.
Actually, it's experiencing a small boom.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is again I'm gonna go a little political here, but trust me, it's not to say fuck you to this person or fuck you to that person. It's just, politics decide a trend. So like in the 80s, for example, conservatism was a lot more popular, and if you actually go watch a horror movie of the 80s, it is very conservative in its undertones. Don't go out in the woods and have sex with that boy. Don't do this, don't do that.
Mhm.
In our current state where we're going at with horror, there's a small boom because horror movies are actually putting people that otherwise don't really get a shot. They're actually leading entire productions and they're leading entire franchises. So, an example I'll give is people were just fighting for Disney to allow women into the MCU, right? I'm just, again, not to shoot at Disney. If it were WB doing it, I'd be saying WB. But
I like how you're kind of like being careful to say I'm not throwing any shade at Disney after you've just went on like
Yeah, but right now I'm
the
gonna
most
hit
the most
the thing that
explicit
everybody
hashtag
loves.
anti-Disney tirade I've ever heard like 45 minutes ago.
I
So
don't know. The Alex Jones Disney attack is not relevant right now, but the reason why I'm pointing all this out is because horror movies actually have people are going back and they're digging through their catalogs and they're recognizing that in horror women have been leading franchises for since the beginning. And
Mhm.
some of the women were proud to be leading the franchises, some of them were not. But at the end of the day, you can't deny them. They were leading the franchises, like with enemy of the show, Jamie Lee Curtis. But at the end of the day, Jamie Lee Curtis was in Halloween. She was in a bunch of films. She handled 2 Halloween films with sequels, which was more or less unheard of at the time. You had she became one of the first scream queens that when you knew, hey, she's in this movie, people flocked to go see it because she's in it. You had Sigourney Weaver commanding box offices with Aliens. So as people kind of, again, this is going to sound stupid, as people sort of wake up and smell the coffee, they're seeing like, hey, wait a minute. A couple years ago, Hellraiser, the reboot, the cast was a lot of the cast members were gay. They were also a few people that were of color. They're black. There are different things that are being shown in these films. Why aren't we supporting these films? Why are we supporting only the other ones? And now people are coming around. And what's pretty cool is we don't have to change anything because they were always here. We just really didn't, they never got the highlights they deserved. One movie I'll also give a highlight to, which was technically led by an all woman crowd. Uh, Evil Dead Rise, almost 2, 3 years ago. That
Mhm.
was an all film. That was an all woman movie. They didn't advertise it as such. They didn't have to change the name to the Women of the Evil Dead, Evil Dead Rise. And they put in a good movie and they call it a day, right? Like it is what it is. So we're having a small boom and a resurgence. It's getting popular. You will get some pushback, but it's how it goes when anything's popular. Remember when you were a kid, you weren't allowed to read comic books? Right? Like what's wrong with a comic book, but it is what it is. It's how it is. It's weird. It's funky. It's my rant. But horror is pretty much coming back. I wouldn't have gotten a bunch of followers on TikTok if horror weren't so popular. We wouldn't have the show if horror weren't as popular as it is these days. But yeah, so let's see what folk horror brings us. That's my closing statement. How about
Yeah,
you two?
let's see what sprouts from this genre.
Little Sprout
I
is a pumpkin
was
carrying the
waiting for the next
soul of man.
weird movie I'm gonna like wrap my head around for days on. I'm just like, all right, let's see how I can get mentally screwed over in this time.
Now you getting messy screwed over, robot? All you have to do is listen to the ether and remember, no matter what you do, make sure that that kid dies. You're better off without the children.
Bring back our favorite show's motto. Fuck them
Fuck them
kids.
kids.
After all,
That's what you think. We are dodging those allegations.
Fuck.
Nope.
This was like number one. We hate the kids. We hate the kids. How about
All right.
you, Fish? What's your closing out statement?
closing out statement. Um, cuddle rabbits, watch out for hares.
What?
I said cuddle rabbits, but watch out for hares.
Ah,
Here's
yeah.
something different. Yeah.
I say, come on, rabbits, and cut out your hairs. That's what I heard. I'm
Yeah,
like, wait, what?
yeah, that's exactly what I said. It's exactly what I said.
What did the poor rabbits do to you?
And on that note,
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen,
Yeah,
next week we will return to
rabbits do enough
folklore.
of that amongst themselves.
What?
Rabbits do enough of that among themselves.
Yes,
oh
they
goodness.
do.
Mm-hmm.
Next week.
Famous turtle. Okay, sorry. So, yeah, next week. Well, no, this week. This week we've got a guest, right?
Hopefully everything works out with the guest. We might be interviewing a... See, once again, things are changing in the trends because this guy kind of does a bit of folk horror here and there with his trends, with his films. We might be interviewing Dylan Clark. Hopefully everything works out. Dylan Clark of short film fame of Portrait of God. He has so many more that right now my head is just trying to wrap around with all the other things going on. But if everything works out, we will be back again later on this week, and we will be talking with Dylan Clark. We look forward to hearing from him. Hopefully this episode didn't scare him off if he's listening. I promised I'm not unhinged.
Stop lying. You are unhinged. I think that's part
7
of
of the
your...
best episodes.
I just gave him a link. I'm like, here you go. This is what we're all about. If you have time, just go ahead and do it. I'm not going to lie to people. I've threatened Jennifer Aniston on here before. It happens.
it's a good.
I sent those letters that I sent to you guys, Jennifer Aniston. You're all an accessory after the fact now.
They reminded me of the Jack the Ripper letters.
That was what I was going for. I was testing my pen out.
Yeah.
Those things were like chicken scratch.
The loops on your Ys were dangerously large.
And I was extremely unhinged. Just like I am after watching a Jennifer Aniston movie.
Your J's were invasive. Your G's were encroaching upon the territory of other letters. I'm shocked.
And worried. Just like this guy is after listening to this episode.
And
see you soon, everybody.
See you soon, everybody.